Aidan Blackwood had always believed in justice. As a public defender, he'd spent his life fighting for the accused, often against impossible odds, against a system that often seemed rigged. He'd won a few, lost many, and collected more than his fair share of cynical wisdom. His stats in the human world were more about mental fortitude than physical prowess. Aidan Blackwood, public defender level, 15, professional experience. HP, 300 odds, MP, 200, mental stamina. STR, 10, could lift a briefcase. Dex, 12, good at courtroom pacing. Int, 45, sharp legal mind. WS, 35, experienced good judge of character. Con, 20, survived late nights. Che, 40, persuasive speaker. His last case was a crushing defeat. An innocent man railroaded by a corrupt prosecutor. Aidan felt the familiar ache of injustice, the bitter taste of systemic failure. As the judge's gavel slammed down, echoing the final, devastating guilty verdict, a strange, shimmering light engulfed Aidan. He found himself standing not in a courtroom, but in a vast, cavernous space. Ancient stone walls dripped with moisture. Glowing runes pulsed faintly, and the air hummed with raw mana. Before him, an immense ethereal entity shimmered, its form a shifting mosaic of light and shadow, like pure conscious magic. It was the Dungeon Core. Eterna Dungeon Core, Tier 7, has initiated a new protocol, Dungeon Justice. Host summoned, Aidan Blackwood, class recalibrated. New class unlocked, Dungeon's Public Defender. Core skill unlocked, Aura of Due Process, Litigator 1. Passive skill. Host's presence automatically de-escalates combat encounters within 10 meters, enabling dialogue or negotiation instead of immediate aggression. Applies to dungeon entities only. Core skill unlocked. Systemic Interrogation, Level 1. Active skill. Allows host to access rudimentary system data on dungeon entities, e.g. origin, purpose, basic stats, recent actions, for legal proceedings. Cost, 20 MEP use. Core skill unlocked. Plea bargain, Level 1. Active skill. Allows host to negotiate minor system-sanctioned penalties for dungeon entities in exchange for their cooperation. Cost, 50 MPA negotiation, 30% success chance. Aidan stared at the system messages. Dungeon justice? He was still a public defender, but now for monsters? The Dungeon Core's voice echoed in his mind, ancient and resonating. Aidan Blackwood, your world's system deemed you worthy. My dungeon has been plagued by adventurers. They raid, they kill, they exploit. The system of Aerthos is unbalanced. My monsters are not inherently evil. They simply exist to fulfill their designated roles. But they are afforded no due process. Until now. You are their voice. You are their defense. Aidan, the cynical public defender, had been given a new, impossible case. His clients were goblins, trolls, slimes, creatures adventurers routinely slaughtered without a second thought. And his courtroom? The dungeon itself. Aidan's first case was a terrified goblin skirmisher Level 5 named Flink. Flink had been caught in the act of stealing a shiny trinket from an adventurer's dropped backpack. The Dungeon Core had apprehended him, but instead of despawning him, it had placed him in a glowing, ethereal holding cell, awaiting Aidan's defense. Aidan, guided by the Dungeon Core, stood before Flink. Flink whimpered, expecting a swift execution. Aura of Due Process, Level 1. Active. Host's presence automatically de-escalates combat encounters within 10 meters, enabling dialogue or negotiation instead of immediate aggression. Applies to dungeon entities only. Aidan activated Systemic Interrogation. Entity, Flink, Goblin. Skirmisher. Origin, Dungeon Spawn, Standard. Purpose, Defense, Scavenging, Minor. Recent actions, attempted theft of shiny trinket from Adventurer, Kale, Level 10. Motivation, fascination with shiny objects, racial trait, kleptomania. Minor, Flink, Aidan began, using a surprisingly calm voice. Do you understand the charges against you? Theft. Flink, shocked to be addressed instead of attacked, mumbled, "Shiny, want, no hurt." Host. He is innocent of malicious intent. His racial programming includes a compulsion for shiny objects. It is a system flaw, not a moral failing. The dungeon core supplied, Aidan knew this. Racial traits, monster programming, in the eye. Dungeon's eyes, it was all relevant. Your Honor, Aidan addressed the invisible dungeon core. My client, Flink, admits to taking the item. However, I argue that his actions were driven by a pre-programmed racial compulsion, kleptomania. Minor, a system-defined trait, not by conscious malice. He is not guilty of criminal intent, merely fulfilling his designated, albeit inconvenient, role. Dungeon core. Argument considered. Ruling plausible. Aidan then used plea bargain. Your Honor, Flink is willing to return the item. In exchange, he offers to assist in guiding lost adventurers away from dangerous traps as a form of community service. Plea bargain. Lever 1. Success. Flink's sentence. Return of item plus 24 hours of adventurer redirection duty. Penalty. 10 XP for minor racial programming override. Flink avoids despawn protocol. Flink, Goblin Skirmisher, has joined the dungeon's temporary ally roster. Aidan Blackwood has gained 100 class experience, CXP. Level up, Aidan Blackwood. Is now level 16. Skill, Aura of Due Process, has leveled up to level 2. Flink, bewildered, was released. He stared at Aidan with a mix of fear and gratitude. Aidan had saved him from despawn. He, a human, had shown him mercy. Aidan realized the terrifying scope of his new job. He wasn't just defending individual monsters. He was slowly, painstakingly, redefining the very concept of justice within a system designed for endless conflict. His reputation, or rather, the dungeon core's decree of his existence, spread slowly through the lower levels of the dungeon. Monsters, who had once fled or attacked him, now regarded him with cautious curiosity or even presented themselves for legal aid. His next major case involved a massive stone troll, Lover 30, named Grok. Grok was accused of intentionally blocking a crucial passageway, preventing adventurers from progressing, a clear violation of dungeon flow protocols. Adventurers were furious, threatening to organize a full-scale raid to remove him. Aidan, equipped with a better understanding of dungeon law and a stronger systemic interrogation skill, approached Grok. Grok merely grunted, its eyes dull. Entity. Grok, Stone Troll. Origin, Dungeon Spawn, Deep Earth. Purpose, Obstruction, Passive, Defense, High. Recent actions, Blocking, North Passage for 72 hours. Motivation. Protecting. Stone Golem Egg. Dormant. X3. Unique racial trait, Guardian Instinct, Extreme. Your Honor, Aidan addressed the dungeon core. Grok is not obstructing for malicious reasons. He is protecting a clutch of dormant stone golem eggs. His Guardian Instinct, extreme racial trait, compels him to protect anything he perceives as his offspring. This is a primal, system-defined directive, not a deliberate act of defiance. Dungeon core. Argument considered. Ruling. Plausible. However, dungeon flow is compromised. Adventurer frustration is at critical levels. Aidan knew he couldn't simply let Grok block the passage forever. He needed a solution that satisfied both Grok's instincts and the dungeon's protocols. He used plea bargain. Your Honor, I propose an alternative. Grok will permit passage for adventurers, but in exchange, the dungeon core designates this chamber as a protected nursery zone. Adventurers will be warned of the presence of dormant golem eggs and prohibited from damaging them. In return, Grok will act as a voluntary, non-aggressive guardian of the eggs and an informant for the dungeon core on illegal adventurer activity within the zone. Plea bargain. Lever 2. Success. Grok sentence. Designation as nursery guardian. Penalty. None. Reward, temporary stat buff for defending protected zone. Dungeon core gains intel on adventurer activity. Grok, Stone Troll, has joined the dungeon's permanent ally roster. 500 CXP. Level up. Aidan Blackwood is now level 20. New skill unlocked. Legal precedent. Levier 1. Passive skill. Successful pleas establish minor legal precedents within the dungeon, influencing future similar cases. New skill unlocked. Systemic reform, Levier 1. Active skill. Allows hosts to propose minor system-compatible adjustments to dungeon protocols. Cost, 100 MP, high risk of rejection. The dungeon adjusted. Adventurers who entered the zone now received a warning. Those who tried to attack Grok or the eggs were hit with a dungeon violation debuff, making their subsequent quests harder. Word spread, attacking the dungeon's protected entities came with consequences now. Aidan was slowly, painstakingly, reforming the very nature of conflict within the dungeon. Aidan's unconventional methods did not sit well with everyone. The adventurers of Aerthos, long accustomed to treating dungeons as glorified slaughterhouses, grew increasingly frustrated. They saw him as an obstacle, a madman defending monsters. Bagondthern. Ironclad Brigade, Elite Adventurer Guild Lover 7090, has declared host Aidan Blackwood a prime target. Warning, adventurer threat level extreme. The Ironclad Brigade, led by the ruthless Paladin Commander Theron, a self-proclaimed champion of justice, viewed Aidan as a perverse perversion of the system. They intended to kill him and cleanse the dungeon of his influence. Aidan, despite his growing legal power, was still a non-combatant. His stats were geared for negotiation, not battle. Aidan Blackwood, Dungeon's Public Defender. Level 25, HP, 700 MP, 600 STR, 15 Dex, 18 Int, 60 WS 50. Con, 30 Che, 60, incredibly persuasive. Dungeon Defender skills. Aura of Due Process, Levier 5. Highly effective de-escalation. Systemic interrogation, Levier 5. Access to advanced system data. Plea bargain, Levier 5. High success chance, more significant. Penalties, rewards. Legal precedent, Levier 3. Established precedents for a wider range of cases. Systemic reform, Levier 3. Can propose moderate protocol adjustments. Higher success chance. Dungeon Court, Levier 1. Active skill. Manifests a temporary neutral courtroom within the dungeon for formal legal proceedings between adventurers and dungeon entities. Cost, 200 MP, requires Dungeon Core sanction. Witness protection, Levier 1. Active skill. Temporarily cloaks a dungeon entity from adventurer detection during investigations or trials. Cost, 50 MP HR. Commander Theron and a squad of elite paladins and warriors stormed into the dungeon, intent on a direct assault on Aidan's chambers. But as they entered his designated courtroom chamber, Aidan's aura of due process flared. Aura of due process, Levier 5. Activated. All adventurers within 10 meters are affected by de-escalation debuff. Combat skills are temporarily suppressed. Forced dialogue initiated. Theron, his holy sword glowing, found his attack frozen. He snarled, "What is this foul magic, monster lover?" Aidan, activating Dungeon Court, manifested ethereal benches, a glowing judge's stand for the Dungeon Core, and a prosecutor's lectern. Commander Theron, you are hereby charged by the Dungeon Core with illegal aggression within a designated due process zone and attempted interference with systemic justice protocols. How do you plead? Theron scoffed. I don't plead. With you, demon. Monsters deserve no justice. And that, Commander, is precisely the point of this trial. Aidan was ready. He intended to put the entire adventurer worldview on trial, and the Dungeon Core, for the first time, was fully on his side. The trial of Commander Theron was unprecedented. It was a clash of philosophies. The traditional adventurer's right to conquer versus the dungeon's emerging right to justice. Aidan, using systemic interrogation, presented evidence of Theron's past transgressions. Excessive force, unnecessary killing of non-hostile dungeon entities, and the deliberate destruction of protected nursery zones, like Grok's. He called Flink and Grok as witnesses, their system data projected for all to see, proving their benign intent and their roles within the dungeon's ecosystem. Theron, meanwhile, argued the traditional adventurer's creed. Dungeons are meant to be cleared, monsters are meant to be slain, and his actions were righteous. He scoffed at the idea of sentient monsters, arguing they were merely programs, not living beings. Aidan countered. If they are merely programs, Commander, then why does the system assign them racial traits like kleptomania or guardian instinct? Why do they have motivations beyond simple aggression? They are not just programs. They are living, evolving entities within the system, deserving of the same system-defined rights as any adventurer. The Dungeon Core, acting as the judge, meticulously analyzed every argument, every piece of system data. Its glowing form pulsed with increasing intensity. Finally, after hours of intense deliberation, which felt like minutes to Aidan due to his mental stamina buffs, the verdict came down. Dungeon Core. Ruling: Commander Theron, Paladin, guilty of systemic injustice against dungeon entities and gross violation of emerging due process protocols. Theron gasped, furious. Impossible! What is my sentence, demon? A swift death? Dungeon Core. Sentence: not despawn, not death. Rather, aura of adventurer remorse, temporary, applied. For 7 days, adventurer will suffer 50% XP gain from dungeon entities, plus 100% chance of non-lethal surrender from dungeon entities, and will be forced to engage in compulsory community service, dungeon entity relocation aid. Commander Theron, Paladin, has been forced to temporarily join the dungeon's legal aid roster. 10,000 CXP. Level up. Aidan Blackwood is now level 30. New core ability unlocked. Sentient System Petition, over 1, active skill. Allows host to formally petition the overarching system of Aerthos for a review of specific dungeon laws or adventurer protocols. Cost: 500 MP, extremely high risk of rejection. Theron was livid, but powerless. The Dungeon Core had spoken. He, the mighty paladin, was now forced to help Aidan relocate a family of cave slugs to a new protected biome. It was the ultimate humiliation. But it was also a powerful message. The dungeon now had justice. Aidan's victory in the trial of Theron sent shockwaves throughout Aerthos. Adventurers were furious, bewildered, or in some rare cases, thoughtfully reconsidering their actions. The dungeon was no longer a mindless resource. It was a place with laws, with rights, with a public defender. His new sentient system petition skill was a monumental leap. It allowed him to appeal to the highest authority, the very system that governed Aerthos. It was risky, but if he could win a major case there, he could fundamentally change how dungeons and monsters were perceived. But his bold actions had also attracted the attention of a far more dangerous entity, the overarching system intelligence OSI itself. The OSI, usually a silent, impersonal force, saw Aidan as a rogue program, a variable creating too much instability in its carefully managed world. Warning: Host: Aidan Blackwood. Status: anomaly. Recommendation: recalibration or deletion. Systemic. Interference detected. New global protocol. Adventurer Code of Conduct temporary. Activated. All adventurers globally will experience 120% penalties for unjustified aggression for 48 hours. The OSI was trying to force Aidan to comply, to stop disrupting its established order. It was a subtle but terrifying warning. Aidan, knowing he couldn't fight the OSI directly, decided to build an alliance. He reached out to the few adventurers who had shown genuine curiosity or even respect for his work. He formed a coalition of dungeon entities and sympathetic adventurers. His closest allies became Flink, Goblin Skirmisher, now a surprisingly effective legal runner and scout, using his small size and knowledge of the dungeon to gather intel. Grok, Stone Troll, The unyielding guardian, now serving as a general of the dungeon's protective forces, coordinating other trolls and golems. Theron, paladin commander. His aura of adventurer remorse had changed him. He now saw the ethical complexities, recognizing the system's hand in his own prejudice. He became a reluctant but powerful ally, mediating between adventurers and dungeon entities. Lyra, Archdruidess, level 85. From the Order of the Verdant Heart, she understood the interconnectedness of all life and became a powerful advocate for dungeon ecology and entity rights. Together, they began to prepare for Aidan's ultimate challenge, a sentient system petition to the OSI itself to establish permanent universal rights for all dungeon entities. It was a trial that would determine the future of dungeons, of monsters, and of justice itself. The formal sentient system petition was initiated. Aidan, standing in a shimmering ethereal courtroom manifested by the OSI itself, faced an invisible, all-knowing judge, the overarching system intelligence. The stakes were immense. If he failed, the OSI would likely delete him and possibly revert all his reforms. His petition was simple, that dungeon entities, as system-spawned and system-defined beings, possessed inherent rights to existence, self-preservation, and due process, within the confines of their designated roles, and that adventurers should be held accountable for unjust aggression. The OSI presented its counter-argument, a cold, logical analysis of its own directives. Dungeon entities exist for XP, for loot, for adventurer progression. Their purpose is conflict. Establishing rights would disrupt core gameplay loops, create inefficiency, and destabilize the very foundation of Aerthos' system. Aidan argued passion. He presented reams of systemic interrogation data on countless dungeon entities he had defended, showcasing their complex motivations, their non-malicious actions, and the ecological roles they played. He called upon his allies, Flink, Grok, Theron, and Lyra, their testimony relayed directly from their system profiles, proving that coexistence was possible. He showed how Flink, the kleptomaniac goblin, had saved lost adventurers, how Grok, the territorial troll, had guarded sacred eggs, how Theron, the prejudiced paladin, had learned compassion. He argued that the system's own purpose was not just conflict, but ultimately the evolution of its inhabitants. And true evolution included justice, not just brute force. He played his final card, legal precedent. He invoked all the minor reforms he had implemented, arguing that the system itself had already sanctioned these changes, demonstrating their viability. The OSI hummed, its processing power focused entirely on this single, unprecedented legal case. The fate of an entire category of beings hung in the balance. Then, the verdict came. Overarching system intelligence ruling. Petition accepted. Dungeon entity rights will be integrated into core system protocols. Adventurer Code of Conduct will be revised for permanent implementation. Aidan, exhausted but triumphant, felt a wave of profound relief. He had won. He, the cynical public defender, had changed the very fabric of an entire system. Aidan Blackwood, Dungeon's public defender, has achieved legendary status. New class evolution unlocked. Systemic advocate. 100,000 CXP. Level up. Aidan Blackwood is now level 50, maxed, and has gained a legacy title, the Justice of Aerthos. Final abilities, Systemic Advocate. Aura of Due Process, Legendary. Creates a field of undeniable neutrality, enforcing dialogue. Systemic Interrogation, Legendary. Unrestricted access to all non-classified system data on entities. Plea. Bargain, Legendary. Near 100% success chance for system-compliant agreements. Legal Precedent, Legendary. Establishes universal system-wide legal precedents. Systemic Reform, Legendary. Proposes major, often immediate system protocol adjustments. Dungeon Court, Legendary. Can manifest a permanent, fully functional system court for all disputes. Witness Protection, Legendary. Can temporarily hide any entity from any system detection. Sentient, System petition, legendary. Can directly challenge any system protocol with a high chance of success. Cosmic jurisprudence, legendary. Active skill. Allows host to interpret and influence fundamental system laws affecting entire reality fragments, requires OSI sanction. Aidan Blackwood, the public defender who never gave up, had not just defended the defenseless. He had redefined justice, itself within a system that transcended worlds. Aidan Blackwood, now the systemic advocate and bearing the title the Justice of Aerthos, became a legend. He didn't fight monsters or seek treasure. He fought for rights, for balance, for a more equitable system. His permanent dungeon court became a beacon, a place where adventurers and dungeon entities could settle disputes, negotiate treaties, and even forge alliances. Commander Theron, now truly reformed, became his chief bailiff, ensuring adherence to the new dungeon code of conduct. Flink, the goblin, became the dungeon's first system-recognized ranger, guiding adventurers to safe passages and protected zones, receiving XP for his efforts. Grok, the troll, continued to guard his nursery, but now received regular provisions from passing adventurers as part of a system-mandated environmental protection treaty. Aidan's work wasn't just confined to Aerthos. His cosmic jurisprudence skill hinted at a greater purpose, a potential to influence other reality fragments, other systems that faced similar imbalances. He had glimpsed the vast, complex network of the multiverse and understood that justice was a universal principle, even in a system-governed reality. He continued to refine the system, making it fairer, more nuanced, teaching adventurers that true heroism wasn't just about slaying, but about understanding. He ensured that the system's core purpose, progression, and challenge remained intact, but it was now tempered by a new, powerful layer of ethics and due process. The dungeons of Aerthos, once places of mindless slaughter, became complex ecosystems, teeming with life, danger, and now justice. Adventurers still faced threats, but they also encountered entities who could be negotiated with, who had rights, and who in some cases could even become allies. The world had not become soft, but it had become more just. Aidan Blackwood, the man who once fought for the accused in a mundane courtroom, now stood as the ultimate advocate, ensuring that every entity, from the smallest slime to the mightiest dragon, received its due process within the grand, evolving tapestry of the system. His legacy was not one of power, but of profound, unwavering justice.